On the 14th of March, 2015, I received the Yes Abroad Scholarship to become an exchange student in India. My mind immediately went crazy thinking about all the new experiences I will need to adjust to. There was two things I knew for sure. A, India has a lot of people, and B, India has a lot of different languages. I started stressing about learning Hindi immediately. I would hide a list of basic Hindi words in my desk and try to read and memorize while my history teacher went on his long rants about the political race taking place. I soon realized after coming to India that no matter where I go, I will most likely be able to find someone who knows adequate English to get me to where I need to be. But that doesn't mean I don't appreciate or understand the beauty and power behind a language, especially Hindi. Every language has a fascinating origin story and deserves respect. So, without further ado, Namaste. मेरा नाम मेव है. मेरा अमेरिका से आई हूँ. मैं एमिटी इंटरनेशनल सेक्टर 46 गुड़गांव में पढ़ती हूँ. मैं 11वीं कक्षा की छात्रा हूँ. मुझे हिंदुस्तानी लोग, मौसम, खाना, मिठाई आदि बहुत पसंद है. मुझे खेल बहुत पसंद है. मैं पसंदीदा खेल खो-खो और कबड्डी है. मैं भारत में 10 महीने तक रहूंगी. The best part about a language is that the rules are constantly changing. Without realizing it, languages transform themselves to fit the generation, market trends, fads, and even communities. Slang is a perfect example of that. Words that were once simple and had one meaning have now been twisted and complicated to mean something completely different. One specific trait I recognized, especially in India, was the wide uses of abbreviation. Now, I had no clue what GK, RBI, or CP even were, and I am definitely not up to date with my generation when it comes to texting and or using emojis. I mean, what does Iliism or the IDK or TTYL even mean? And when someone sends you a simple heart emoji, I mean, that could be interpreted in 100 different ways. But I don't mind these changes in communication. In fact, that's what keeps me interested. As long as you are trying to learn something new from someone else's point of view, you are growing through change. Even if that initial conversation does start with an HMU, a laughing emoji, or sliding into someone's DMs, at least you are making a connection. At least you are reaching out. And when it comes down to it, that is the most basic and fundamental quality behind a language. So, in this room full of majority of Indians, how many of you speak pure Hindi in your everyday activities? All right, see a couple. Now, how many of you speak a mixture of languages, or even two at the same time, like English? Right. So the language that everybody in this room is fluent in, whether they know it or not, is body language. How a person physically represents themselves can tell a lot about that individual without a word having to slip out of their mouth. Now, that doesn't give you an excuse to judge a book by its cover, but it does give good insight on the best ways of initiating a conversation, which I was pretty desperate to spark in order to start this cross-culture learning experience. Not only did I stick out because of my blank white skin, my blue eyes, or my flaring red hair, but also because of my mannerisms. So I had to take a step back. I had to observe. And of course, the first thing I noticed was the notorious Indian head nod. I mean, I had no clue if everybody was saying yes or no, or just had some strange kink in their neck. But before I even noticed, my head slowly started bobbing from side to side, before I even knew it. And just like a little kid, when adjusting to a new culture, gestures and mannerisms are mimicked and internalized without making a conscious effort. Next, I observed hands flying everywhere, whether that was during Bollywood music, dancing, or whether that was my peers bending down to touch their elders' feet, or whether that was a regular conversation. Hands would be flying every which way direction, and wrists would be turning 180 degrees. So, with little experience with a head nod, a very thick Minnesotan accent, and the only time my hands would ever move from my nervous side was for an occasional high five, I was faced with the daunting task of making friends with the peers around me. I was used to just sticking out my hand, stating my name and connecting fairly quickly. But that was very direct and quite frankly may have been awkward and uncomfortable for a more indirect setting. So again, take a couple steps back. I had to observe. So I'd watch other students and how they'd approach their friends. And I realized this camaraderie between teenagers. And I thought, at least I can connect on that level. And then I shouldn't even overthink the situation, because they may be just as excited and maybe even nervous to meet me. In my state of the US, there's a stereotype called Minnesota nice. I definitely fit that stereotype by saying an abundance of, oh, I'm so sorry, and thank you very, very much, and please and thank yous. Always looking directly in the eye, speaking at a clarity and volume best fit for the person I'm addressing. Basically, just being a complete and utter people pleaser, and making sure not to offend any person in the room. Knowing that I had this quality was both a blessing and a curse, because in the US, it enabled me to connect and communicate fairly quickly. But when I came to India, I felt like an alien. I didn't know what to do. I was an outsider. I couldn't even do the simplest of activities, such as using the bathroom or eating food. Also, a Minnesotan nice trait I had was saying hi to anybody in the streets. This was easy with my 100,000 population Rochester, Minnesota hometown, but coming to Gurgaon with a 1+ million population, you can imagine what obstacle this would create. So, how did I go about addressing people? Who did I call Didi or Bhaiya or Auntie or Uncle or the long chain of names allotted to relatives? I can't tell you how many times I called a young lady Auntie too soon in their lifetime, or how many times I addressed an adult by their first name, because that's how they introduce themselves. I've come to love and respect that these titles, they give respect. Whether that's a rickshaw bhaiya or a teacher calling me Beta. I will never forget the time when I walked onto my school bus and little kids were pulling on my kurta in my hands, screaming Didi at the top of their lungs. Or when my host Bua during Diwali turned to me and called me Baba, with fireworks bursting in the background. These titles give a lot of respect, love, and gratitude, instead of just spitting out the words thank you. Next, how did I address authority figures? I was taught ever since I was young to question adults, because that showed that I was mature enough to carry an educated conversation and or debate which would lead me to a better understanding. Again, you can imagine how many respected people I deeply offended for doing what I thought was right, and even what they wanted. After offending what I felt like every single citizen of India, I thought there was no way I could ever make any real connections with these people around me from such a strange land. But once my peers realized that I don't bite, and that, in fact, my freckles are not a disease, they welcomed me with generous and caring arms. They fed me information about my surrounding culture that no book could have ever taught me. So, cheers to a communication adjustment. To the kids that let me sit next to them at lunch, so I didn't look like a complete loner. Or to the students that got me involved in their activities. Or even to the kids that just shouted across the hall just to say welcome or hello. Let me say thank you. I know those magic words may seem empty and overused in any language, but it is the only thing I can say to show my appreciation for making me feel at home. The small decision you made to change your everyday cycle and meet a foreigner has impacted your life in hopefully a positive way. For me, it was the only reason I needed to keep on learning and adjusting to a new culture. Now, the real challenge actually comes with adapting. Change is the outcome and the reward for the gruesome challenge of adapting. Ever since the beginning of time, we as humans have been adapting. I mean, it may seem difficult, confusing, overwhelming, but adapting is inevitable. As Charles Darwin once stated, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. So, now that we know that adapting is so important, we have to recognize the fact that adapting is the only way to progress and move forward in this world that is changing faster than ever, with cultures molding together through peaceful programs such as student exchange. Deciding to apply for this challenge will leave me in 4 months with a new, beautiful school, a loving host family, friends, and community that will love and support me no matter how many changes or adaptations I endure through this life. Dhanyavad.